Welcome back to another episode of Sal and Pal's Stay at Home and Watch Movies. I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hi, everyone.
So today we're going to be talking about Antebellum. And just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. A successful author, Veronica Henley, finds herself trapped in a horrific reality and must uncover the mind-bending mystery before it's too late. So for this movie, I'm going to start off with my pros like I always do. My first pro is the costume design for the pre-modern era in this movie. And then the costumes for Janet Monáe, who plays Veronica in the movie. Her dresses for her modern age really are eye-catching. But really what caught my eye was the whole design for the pre-modern era. Because it was made to feel subtle and not overwhelming. So you wouldn't be overwhelmed by the costume design. It was just there and you were basically just more deeply invested in the surroundings than just the costumes. So you were more like diving into the whole imagery of the set. Next pro on my list is the cinematography during the beginning. I would say about 8 to 10 minutes in the beginning of the movie. I really enjoyed the nice long shots and wide shots. They were really well done. They were done really nicely, I would say, to show the viewers the setting with not a lot of words. It was mostly done in a subtle way with just the camera lingering from one side to another and then just focusing on an activity that some people were engaging in. So that kind of brought the whole thing together. It basically set the scene for us at the beginning of the movie, but that's kind of as far as that goes. So nice work to the camera crew who did that. Like I said, unfortunately, that's as far as that goes for my pros. Now on to my cons. Like I was saying about the opening, after you hear Jack Huston, who plays Captain Jasper, say that there won't be no speaking unless they're giving permission to, and he's speaking to the slaves. We see right there and then that the actors, for example, Janet Monáe, who plays Veronica / Eden, from that point that she is not allowed to speak, this shortens her story development in a sense that she can't share her stories and share her emotions and pain to the viewers by expressing it through words with other characters. Instead, she just keeps silent and just doesn't basically do anything. I mean, one thing is just to show it through your expressions, another thing is to express it through words. So right there and then, her ability as an actor to speak words and use the words to emphasize what she is feeling is limited by the rules in this setting. That also goes for the other actors who play the slaves in this setting. This goes hand in hand with the next con, which is the story. Let's face it, there is not a lot of, and when you add the idea of the characters, they're not allowed to speak, you are limiting the story, which is basically based on a time period idea. Next con, which also connects to this idea, is character development. This movie lacks it, and in a big way, in both time periods. Modern time between Veronica and her friends, and also Veronica and her husband, also Veronica in her career. We never really saw her potential. We know what her potential is, but we never saw it take center stage for us. It just basically was told to us, but we never saw it in front of us. In the pre-modern era, we saw characters, but we never got any background story to them. For example, Julia, who at the end hung herself. She shows up and she says that she knows Veronica, but how does she know Veronica? From where? You could have shown her as an intern working with Veronica before, or maybe at the book signing during the convention in the middle of the movie. But no, that character also had potential, but you just go ahead and have her hang herself, and that's it. Also, the character who they call Professor at the end, who was he? What connection does he have with Veronica? I mean, that is a very strong potential character that you can have tie into Veronica's future, past, whatever, but you don't do anything else but just have her say at the end, Professor, and that's it. You do not touch upon that. You do not develop him. So why even have him there? You have these characters that you can develop, but you don't. So why even have them there? It's this idea of why are they there? Just to basically fill in a role? Then just have extras. Don't have them, take center stage and then just wander off. Again, for example, Eric Lange, who plays him / Senator Denton, why not show him butting heads with Veronica in the interviews in the modern times, or build this feud idea between them? And then when we see him kidnap Veronica at the beginning, and then later on we basically put one and one together, we're like, oh, so this is that SOB. That's when we put one and one together. We start putting the pieces of the puzzle together, and we start putting this picture together. And that's how you set up characters. You set up an idea, and then you slowly start pulling back the curtains and then reveal it to us. Next con, the whole build up to the twist after being kidnapped and placed into this reenactment camp. That twist didn't work for me. It just, I guess it felt like a letdown. Since the movie says it's a horror genre, I was expecting something like time travel, something to do with horror. Like in the theater teaser, it showed, glitches and stuff. That's what I was expecting, but I never got that. But instead, I got another M. Shyamalan Village twist. And when I saw that, I felt I was let down by this movie. And at the end of the movie, after I see Veronica escape, I'm like, okay, this is the point where I'm going to get all my answers. But as she's escaping, then we just see the credits roll. And I'm just left there saying, that's it. I'm not going to get my answers. I'm not going to get this package, wrapped up nicely. Instead, we get 3 shots at the end of the FBI raiding the place and a bulldozer knocking over the sign. And that was it. Nothing more. I was still waiting for them to explain the idea behind the butterflies that we saw throughout the movie in the book, on her computer, on the ankle of Julia when she was hanging herself. All these things we never got explained. So to me, this really lacked, I guess, a story development, or some kind of answer, something to wrap it up nicely, and say, here's a nicely packaged movie. But instead it was just, I would say, chaotic in a sense. It was going everywhere at the same time, but at the same time going nowhere. And I guess that's where I'm going to leave it off. I'm going to pass it on to my friend Touly and see how he saw this movie and what grade he gave this movie.
A lot of the things that Sal pointed out, they're going to align with how I feel about the movie. Not a lot of positives that came out of this film. I think the one thing that stood out the most was the theme. It was very pronounced at the beginning. I felt like they were using that particular music to present the mood that the movie was trying to get you to feel. This very sort of like dark, but maybe mysterious, like unknown kind of feel. At least that's what I was getting. And it was extremely pronounced. Like, I feel like it was like a driving force right at the beginning of the film. It's like, oh, we're gonna start you guys off strong with this score that we have. And this music, I think, from what I heard, it looked like they sort of like twisted it at the end and tried to make it into a more, like, I wouldn't call it joyful, but it had a more positive feel to it at the end with how thing ended, with Veronica being able to escape and all. So they were playing around with this theme in particular. And for me, I'm a big fan of musical scores when it comes to films or video games or any entertaining aspect that incorporates music into the work. So to me, I think it's the theme that stands out the most. But there's not much that I can pinpoint that I would say, I really liked about this film. The acting, it was fine. The characters, in terms of them trying to portray the reality of what was in the past and the reality of what is still going on currently, I think the characters were depicting that enough so that I get the point. But as I transition here into my con, I also feel like the movie was too focused on just trying to project that reality of past and present and trying to bridge that gap, more so than to focus on the foundation of the elements of what makes a movie artistic, if you want to put it that way, or entertaining. If the movie wasn't going for entertainment or that thriller or horror aspect, which by that point, if it is, I would expect certain elements to be in the film to sort of get me to come along and believe that, what they were trying to do in terms of the story, the characters, all that stuff, that those things were well connected. And as Sal alluded to, I feel like definitely the characters were really undeveloped, and I would attribute that to maybe a couple of things. There being too many characters, and I guess it's like a subcategory of that idea too, or that notion that there are too many characters was, and that these characters did not matter, or a lot of them did not matter, to me at least. And as Sal pointed to, that these characters were just there to play the role that the movie wanted to play. Examples would be the husband and the daughter of Veronica, like, being there to showcase that, hey, here in the modern time, she has a lovely family, she is happy, and she is successful, not just in her personal endeavors, but having this family that she can happily live her life around. She has a network of friends that she can rely on to help her in her professional endeavor, as well as her personal life, her hobbies, or just to go out and have a fun night. She has all of that, which is fine. But I feel like when it mattered, the parts of the film where Veronica found herself in this dire situation, that these characters that I would assume to be important to her would stand out a little bit at least. Maybe they wouldn't be given a huge spotlight, but enough so that I believe that these characters are important. When the whole twist was revealed that, Veronica was kidnapped and taken prisoner to this reenactment camp of the Civil War, I personally would have liked to see a scene or two with the husband, how he reacted to the situation, how he would have reacted to Veronica being missing, and what he was doing in trying to find his wife. And the same thing can be said about Veronica's friends, who, again, they made it apparent that they were very close, the way they acted around one another. So I would have liked to see it from their perspective too, what they were trying to do to find out what happened to Veronica. But like I said earlier, I think the film was too focused on just presenting how it was in the past and how it is currently, that it loses track of how to make these components, these historical reality or these current realities, how they tie into one another in terms of the storytelling and the characters, so that the movie can be more engrossing outside of the predisposition that I would assume a lot of us are aware of. Aside from Veronica, like all the other characters, I feel like I wasn't invested in, and that doesn't bode well for the movie, because you need your supporting cast to sort of drive home the story. The antagonists, the villains of this film, I wasn't invested in them either. And as Sal said too, I would have liked to see reason behind their actions, aside from the historical causes that will lead their mentality to drive them to do what they did. Have them have like some sort of personal vendetta against Veronica. Elizabeth specifically mentioned that her father, the senator of the film, specifically chose Veronica to be there at the reenactment site. But for what personal reason outside, again, of the predisposition causes? Sal mentioned a couple of examples. Did she rub Elizabeth in the wrong way? Did she rub Elizabeth's father in the wrong way somehow? Give me something to work off of that would make this a whole lot more personal so that I could follow along. And then maybe offer a twist. Maybe Elizabeth was throwing her dad under the bus or somebody under the bus and, misdirecting the reason or something. Or I don't know, give me something to work off with that would allow me to make an assessment about these villains as to why they were behaving the way they were towards Veronica in particular. I don't think the movie dived deep enough, and in conjunction with that, the character development just suffered. So I feel like if they have taken away some of these characters that I mentioned earlier that did not matter, that maybe they could have focused more on just Veronica, and this was a tale about Veronica and the things that are happening around her, we could make a connection, to the past and to the present, but at the same time, keep focus on Veronica and the struggle that she's going through and how she's going to get out of it through her individualism. Because the movie itself, even though it was trying to play on this idea of a group against another group, if you want to put it that light, I felt like it was as much about just Veronica and her struggle to escape this reenactment camp. So if I already started feeling that way, then why introduce all these other characters that, again, did not play much of a role other than just to fill in like an empty row? I would have just liked a more flourished and developed character in Veronica and the villains, the main players of this film, versus, focusing on characters that did not truly matter in the end. I think that really stems out to the story. I mean, maybe it's a plus. I mean, the movie's only an hour and 40 minutes long. For a lot of films, I would say that's a good length, but I felt felt like this film could have done a whole lot more with what they were trying to do in terms of how they were going to tell this story. The twist was not as rewarding as I would have liked it to be. I was not very invested in the characters, and yeah, I there's not much of that, like I said earlier, that I could pinpoint out that I say, oh, I really, really liked this about this film, other than, you know, the music just being pronounced. So I suppose in the end, I'm going to give the film, I'm thinking around like a 4.5 to maybe a 5 out of 10. I guess if you were to ask me the question, did I find the movie entertaining? I would say no. Did I find parts of the film captivating because of how they were trying to set me up for the twist? Sure. Like, you know, with the little girl making her appearance in the elevator with Veronica, you know, things that raised questions. The movie does do that, but the payoff just wasn't there for me. So somewhere between like a 4.5 to a 5 out of 10 would be my final score.
First, let's talk about the music. I totally forgot to talk about the music. The music, I mean, it added another layer. I mean, it was that kind of mystery horror aspect to it. So that's what kept me captivated and hoping that the twist might be some sort of horror sci-fi kind of twist to it. But in the end, it was a twist, but it wasn't satisfying. Like you said, it wasn't a payoff that I was waiting for. The movie, it does raise a lot of questions, but it doesn't really answer them. So in that regard, I'm also going to give it a 4.5 out of 10. So I guess that does it for this review of Antebellum. Please join us next time where we're going to review the New Mutants.
It brings the snow.
What does?
The demon bear.
Please like, comment, and subscribe. You can find our social media links below. And like always, keep watching movies.